One Pacific greetings to you all, and good morning from here at the Pacific Tourism Organization's head office in Suva, Fiji. I warmly welcome you all to our final webinar for the year, and thank you all for joining us this morning. It's been a tough year for tourism, but we're slowly seeing progress, and it'll definitely be an exciting 2021. We had to postpone this webinar for normal times of last week on Friday because due to severe tropical cyclone Yasa hitting Fiji. There's been significant damage up north, but there's not much. There wasn't much damage down here in Suva. We are continuing with our webinar today. Here with me today, Jonathan and Steph from the Expedia group. But before that, just a few reminders. Please remain muted during the webinar until question and answer section, which is at the end of the presentation, where John and Steph will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. But if you can ask your question verbally by unmuting and also turning on your video, your camera, or you can send it through the chat box at on the bottom right, and I'll moderate your questions for you. I encourage you to ask as many questions as you can, as John and Steph share with us some insights into the expected travelers' behavior post-COVID, Australia and New Zealand travelers, priority concerns and intentions, and South Pacific as a destination of choice. So without further delay, I'll hand over to Steph, who would to introduce herself, and then over to Jonathan. Over to you, Steph.
Thanks so much, Atama. Good morning, everyone. As Atama said, my name is Stefanie Schoonens. I am an Associate Market Manager here at Expedia Group, and Jonathan and myself will be sharing a little bit of information with you. But before we begin, we also want to send our love and thoughts to everyone impacted by TC Yasa and Zazu. We hope that all of you and yours are safe and healthy. Jonathan, do you want to say something?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Very good to see your faces. Yes, I am a market associate for Expedia Group. I've been there for 3 years now. I've been working closely with the SPTO team over those last few years, and I'm really excited to share some pretty good insight today with you.
Perfect. So for anyone who doesn't know about Expedia Group, I'll read our little blurb. It's the easiest way to explain who we are and what we do. So Expedia Group is the world's travel platform with an extensive brand portfolio that includes some of the world's most trusted online brands. So we work with over 200 different branded websites and thousands of affiliates. So we provide a global reach for properties who do list with us, tour organizations, airlines. We list in more than 75 countries and over 35 different languages. So quite a wide reach for everyone. All right. So over to the fun stuff. As we've shared, we'll be sharing a little bit about traveller sentiments and expectations. So the sentiments during COVID and expectations post-COVID. We want to share a little bit about 2021 in the making, specifically what travellers will be looking for post-COVID. We also want to share some information specifically about Australian and New Zealand travellers, given that they'll likely be the first groups returning to the islands, what they've prioritised when it comes to their next trip, their concerns and intentions, and most importantly, we want to share how the South Pacific can answer their call. So it's a fairly short presentation. We know throughout this year, we've spent thousands of hours on Zoom calls, video conferences. So we don't just want to talk to you for an hour. Short presentation, and then there'll be quite a lot of time for Q&A. So as Atama said, use the chat box or at the time, jump off mute and we can aim to answer them then. So What will 2021 bring us? I wish Jonathan and I had the crystal ball to be able to answer that question. Clearly, we can't see into the future. Search to really understand the traveller behaviour. As we know, 2020 brought with it many changes, particularly to holidays that were booked this year. And as restrictions lift, the travellers who were impacted this year are in a position to reschedule their trips, use credits they might have, or just plan their next escape. We've seen in destinations globally, as soon as those border announcements are made, those restrictions are lifted, reservations do spike. However, we can't just wait for a border announcement or for the border to reopen. Travellers are thinking and feeling differently about leisure travel. So we've done a lot of global surveys recently, and in one, 73% of travellers have said that their preferences for trips have changed since before COVID. So we'll be sharing a little bit of the insights so that you can be prepared and make sure that you're in the best position to attract these guests when they are ready to book again. When will they book? How will they book? And how often will they book? From that same survey of global travellers, 57% have said that they will travel within the first 6 months of the pandemic ending. And 34% actually said it will be within the first 3. So they're ready to travel as soon as they are able to. Of these same respondents, 66% have said that they would travel the same amount or even more as before the pandemic. And 71% have said that they would opt to book through a third party. When we consider third parties, more than 2/3 of travellers use an OTA to plan their trip. An OTA, for those who don't know, an online travel agent. So of this survey done in July, only 11% indicated that they do not use an OTA for any aspect of their trip, whether that's inspiration, planning, or booking. And almost half of the respondents said that they use OTAs for inspiration. So it is important to consider what's making you, as a hotel partner, a tour operator, an airline, or a destination, stand out from the rest. And why have travellers said that they're 57% more likely to book a hotel through an OTA than before the pandemic? Well, they use online travel agents to get the best nightly rate, to get the best room or their preferred room type, and to compare all properties in one location. Using an OTA allows them to have full access to the market. They can see everything that that market has to offer. They also can look for the best value, and there's an ease of booking. So through the whole pandemic, all of the websites have been working really hard to provide a better customer experience. We know that early on it was quite difficult for guests. So our teams, for example, have been working to create an item on our website that guests can actually change or cancel their reservation within cancellation policies directly online, instead of needing to contact our customer service teams, which is an incredible achievement. They worked very, very hard on it and has provided a better customer experience now. So understanding the landscape during COVID and what the anticipated landscape is post-COVID, we also want to share some information, clear information on travellers' concerns and priorities. And with that, over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Steph. Look, COVID has changed travellers' concerns and priorities, and what we want to highlight today is that those changes aren't negative. The way Aussie, Kiwis, and the world will approach travel going forward shows a lot of opportunity for our destinations. Steph has shared very relevant global data in terms of post-COVID travel behavior. So now we'll be focusing on Australia and New Zealand, as they are very likely the next travelers we'll be seeing in the Pacific. So now, what will travelers be focusing on? According to data of our Expedia Group user research team has uncovered, travelers these days are more focused on 3 items: hygiene and cleanliness. The Pacific is in a very fortunate position where many nations only had little numbers of COVID or no cases at all. However, keep in mind that the international traveler will still be expecting a property to set up thorough cleaning and hygiene measures. So it is important to set those up and communicate them via your website, via the online travel agents you work with, via the agents selling your property, your tour, your product, via your marketing brochures and leaflets. Please highlight those hygiene and cleanliness measures, as they matter a lot. Now, booking and travel flexibility. The travelers need the peace of mind of booking a flexible stay, or tour, or air ticket. The travelers book when they know they will be able to cancel for free if something happens, if a border closes again, for example. And the last item is the value and deals. 2 things there. The deals. Make sure that your product or service is priced right. Now, looking at the value, that's where the customer will be ready to pay more for, let's say, a higher room type, a breakfast inclusions. That's the example where the customer are ready to pay more and put the experience first before the price tag. Now, these are the top 5 items, and we will highlight 3 of them. 29% of Australians and 45% of Kiwis will focus on the deal. It goes along with having a product that is priced right. 34% of them want to avoid the crowds, and that's definitely where the Pacific steps in. 19% put supporting communities as a top priority, and we all know too well how reliant are the Pacific nations on tourism and the massive impact COVID has had on the livelihood of many. So next, what are the Australians and Kiwi travelers' intentions? Well, 48% of Aussies will consider a trip overseas. 23% expect to pay less than last year, but 28% expect to pay more. So it goes along with the value I was previously sharing with you. Should the product be worth and present the value, the Australian travelers will be booking. As for the Kiwis, 57% of them will consider a trip overseas. 76% have already booked or are planning their summer trip. And 42% haven't booked but are actively researching. Australian and New Zealanders are blessed with beautiful landscapes and cities. However, we've been so locked in concrete jungles for close to a year now, and what we all want, and I tell you because I'm one of them, is going overseas, avoid crowd, visit COVID-safe places, support local communities. What Aussie and Kiwi really want, it's what the Pacific has to offer. So look, thanks everyone for listening to us, and please do reach out if you wish to access more detail about the data in regards of the consumer behavior and the study we just shared. Now we would love to hear you share your thoughts, questions, and again, as Atama was sharing, you are welcome to unmute yourself, ask a question, or send a message in the chat box. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John and Steph, for that presentation. We've got our first question here from Paul. Hi, Steph. Our best potential future guests are those who had confirmed reservations with us, but could not travel and had to cancel due to COVID-19. They had already decided to visit us, but could not. Is Expedia planning on reaching out to these customers who had to cancel their trips and encourage them to rebook? If so, is there any way we can be involved in this customer outreach?
So very interesting question, and it's one that we do get a lot because there were a lot of cancellations quite early on. Personally, I am under the impression that our marketing team have the ability to remarket, but I don't know if that's in the plan just as yet, because globally there is still quite a lot going on, and they're focusing on the areas where they can. I will look to find out if we can get any more information or if you can be involved. The only other item that we can recommend is we can try and get those guests' contact details again for you from the reservation so that you can kind of start that conversation once more. So if that's something that anyone is interested in, send your market manager an email and we can work out the best way to communicate with those guests.
The floor is open for any other questions. Just unmute and you can put your question through. For John and Steph, about this research that was done. Oh, one more question from Paul while he types that up. Would you just explain a bit more on the research that was done in July, right? Is it worldwide or it was a worldwide research? And is it available? Is the data available to the public or just?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Atama. So look, there's a few researches we based our presentation today. So the first one is a global research that is being made throughout the world. And that's where Stefanie was sharing global trends in terms of expected travelers' behavior. Then on the other side, we've got a marketing team called the Media Solution Team, who is doing more localized research. And that's where we were able to access very relevant data for Australia and New Zealand. And look, we are happy to, you can reach out to us or your market manager. We are happy to share some of this data with you. It is not confidential. We're happy to share more. It's just that, for example, that first global data has dozens, if not hundreds of pages on it. So we wanted to really pick up the one few items and not overwhelm everyone, but there's definitely data available to share with you.
Hi team, I have a quick question if that's okay, if I can jump in here. Look, thanks for the presentation. A couple of thoughts come to mind, mainly in regards to maybe what you've seen insofar as booking inquiry or searches online when particularly, more recently, the domestic borders in Australia were open for a fleeting moment there, a few weeks. And people did return to travel. You talked about a particular statistic, I think it was 32% want to travel within the first 3 months. What are you seeing insofar as actual behavior from the opportunity that suddenly presents themselves of being able to travel? Can you comment on that at all?
Absolutely, if I can jump in here, Jonathan. So in terms of domestic borders, as soon as those announcements came out, we saw domestic travel within New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand obviously opened up quite a lot earlier with everything under control, and business did come through. In terms of the South Pacific, as soon as the Australia and New Zealand bubble had been announced, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, all of the islands also saw an uptake in searches. because the conversation had always been for a trans-Tasman bubble, including the islands, it seemed that customers saw that first announcement and went, right, the Pacific will be opening not long after, need to wait for that final confirmation. But we did see the searches coming through. And anecdotally as well, earlier on in the year when the Cook Islands announced that they were ready for New Zealand to reopen, it was shut down fairly quickly. But in July when that happened, the number of searches and actual bookings coming through out of New Zealand to the Cooks spiked. So there's definitely demand. They're ready to come as soon as that announcement comes in. We're just waiting for that same day.
Yeah, sure. So look, the other question I then have is if it's about 32% as far as people, you know, in a questionnaire express an intention, is the behavior equal to that or less than or more than that when you actually see it? So it's very easy to answer a questionnaire saying, yes, I really want to travel, but actually is the intentional behavior, are you seeing that flow through into the actual data?
We are. So with the French Polynesian market, for example, being the only market currently open, they have seen massive growth through the last couple of months, and it's been continuous despite the fact that they have had new cases coming through. So it's very clear that people are willing to travel internationally, and that global survey that we did was across 11 countries. So it included Australia, US, I think a couple of places in Europe and Asia as well. So it was a fairly wide project that they did, and we're definitely seeing that through French Polynesia. As soon as we get the announcement that another border is opening, because even with Cooks we don't yet have that date, we'll be able to give some clearer understanding of the exact numbers, but we've definitely seen it coming through.
Great, thank you.
So I can see a couple more questions in the chat. So another from Paul, flexible cancellations are very important. How do we avoid someone cancelling last minute because they found a better deal from a competing property? We're fine with having flexible policies related to COVID, but don't want to get cancellations from people who found better deals at other resorts. Jonathan, I know you've been working very hard with the cancellation policies. Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, look, thanks for the question, Paul. That first of all, you got it right. That offering that flexible policy is really what you want to do during these times of pandemics, and it's also the information that was coming out of those surveys and studies that we shared. There's always going to be competition between properties and resorts, and more than ever. Now, one of the things that is working well in terms of keeping that customer within your property and keep that booking is engage. Should you receive a booking from a guest, straight away engage with them before they even stay at your property. Start a conversation. Do you have any, let's say you're a hotel, do you provide tours and activities? Straight away when you receive that booking, get in touch with that guest, show your catalog, send them leaflets of the different activities or special dinner nights that you organize to start building that relationship before they even stay. The more you build that relationship before they stay, the more likely they are to just keep that booking and stay with you, because they're already excited about all the things they've booked and organized with you. Steph, do you have any other elements to share on this one?
No, I think that's what I would have mentioned as well. Obviously, as you've said, the guest is booked with you for a reason. We don't necessarily see guests cancelling and rebooking in the same destination because they do see a better deal. That's not a common trend, I guess. But if it is something that you are concerned about, engaging with that guest, making them feel like they're already part of the family before they even set foot on the ground is a really good way to get them engaged with the property altogether.
Evelyn, hi team. What is your feel from the market on self-drive for travelers? Would they opt for tour operators or able to drive themselves if and when they arrive in the country?
We don't have any details specifically around this. I know when those surveys were run, they were asking a little bit more about domestic travel, and road trips for domestic travel was quite high, given this was done quite early in the pandemic. We have seen that domestic airlines, at least in Australia, are doing very, very well. I traveled a couple of weeks ago and my flight was full. So I don't necessarily think that's still the case, that people are avoiding tours or looking to self-drive. But again, it's about standing out in the destination. So if it's additional marketing, making sure that people understand your cleanliness procedures so that they're not opting to self-drive because they're worried that potentially the cars haven't been disinfected or anything like that. I think that would be the key, making sure that you're getting that information, as Jonathan shared. And we have another question. What is Expedia doing to help keep prices at a realistic level rather than simply price dropping or offering cheap pricing? Amazing question. Again, something that we get quite a lot, because we do go out and recommend that properties are competitive in the market. That doesn't necessarily mean that the price has to be rock bottom, or that we're asking for you to offer, 75% discounts, because that's what we're expecting customers to see. So as Jonathan shared, I think it was 28% are expecting to pay higher prices than before the pandemic, and less than that, 23 or 25 are expecting cheaper prices. So from a customer's perspective, they are not expecting rock bottom prices, and that's not something that we're asking for as well. If you're in the position to do it and you think that that would work for your business, absolutely, we can help you create a strategy around that. But if a property would come to us, or anyone would come to us and say, what should we do? We've got a whole lot of questions that we ask beforehand to understand what your business is after, what kind of price you are comfortable with, if you can offer value adds to add that additional value that Jonathan mentioned. There's a number of different things that we would look at before recommending anything to you. And at a market level, that's not something that we are after. So I can speak for Fiji, for example. We are partnering with Tourism Fiji and making sure that when that announcement goes into market that Fiji is open, that is getting advertised everywhere through online agents, through all wholesalers. It's kind of going everywhere as we need to get that message out there. And as part of that, we're asking every property to participate, but you don't need to offer a super heavy discount to get involved. So there's a lot happening in the back end, but yes, we're definitely not expecting low prices or anything like that.
Question from Kevin. How has the 9-month hibernation of booking activities changed the ranking algorithm when people are searching? Has there been any abuse of the premium commission slider to push up rankings, knowing that they will not be getting bookings while borders are closed?
That's a very interesting question. I would say that there has been abuse of that tool. There are people still using that tool to be visible, because there are still bookings coming through. It's obviously not where we would like it to be. Had you asked me in January what our bookings would be like in December, I would not have said as few as what we're getting now. But there are still some bookings coming through. So there are properties who are utilizing all of those tools to try and capture their share of that business. In terms of the actual ranking algorithm, nothing has changed. It's still the same as pre-COVID. So there's an opportunity for properties to get boosted by doing natural things like making sure that their rates are aligned, making sure that they've got all of the right content, updated photos, that they are just offering guests a good customer experience when they do travel.
Is there any other questions for Jonathan and Steph? You can send it through chat, or you can unmute and ask yourself.
I would also just say, if you have any questions along the way, send an email to your market manager. You know, we've got a little bit of leave coming up with Christmas and New Year, and I hope you have some time to rest and relax as well, but we'll be able to get back to you in early January. If you do have any questions, there's a couple of questions here very specific about what you can do, or, you know, what you cannot do without discounting prices, which we're more than happy to help with. That's what we're here for.
And yeah, if I might add, look, again, it's been a tough year, so we really wanted to highlight here today that our destinations in the Pacific are definitely in the best position to be capturing bookings when borders reopen. And I remember when during the July webinar, where we were already talking about travel bubble, we were all sort of dreaming of that ideal scenario where Bali would be closed, but Fiji open, and we were thinking of people flocking to Fiji because they wouldn't be able to go to Thailand or Bali or Hawaii. So look, it's not going to happen in 2020, but should that scenario happen, it is more likely to be an actual situation later as a South Pacific bubble happen, because obviously when you look at the situation in Indonesia, for example, it's pretty far off from what we've got in the Pacific. So I guess it's more time than expected that it's going to take, but I think we're really positive it will happen. Obviously, no date in there, but it's the travelers' expectation and intention are really a perfect match to what we've got on offer.
All right, if yeah, last one. Okay, there's a question there from Kevin again.
Are we seeing a shift in traffic away from Southeast Asia towards safer options in the South Pacific? I don't actually have that data with me to see the search traffic from those destinations into ours. In terms of searches into the islands, they are still quite high. So for Fiji, for example, it averages over 16,000 searches a week for travel into Fiji. French Polynesia, when I checked for November, was over 63,000 searches a week into the market. So there's still a lot of people searching the South Pacific. I just wouldn't be able to say what Southeast Asia search numbers are looking like at the moment. But again, if you reach out to your contact here, it's something that we would be able to find out and share with you.
Would they be able to reach out to you, Steph, or to Jonathan themselves?
Absolutely.
If you like to share your contact details in the chat, or also for the participants, if they have any questions, they can reach out directly to you too, and maybe.
I've just popped my email in. I know Jonathan's got leave later on this week, so he'll already be off on holidays. So send me an email and I'll be able to share. Otherwise, it'll be early January. We've got some time off between Christmas and New Year.
All right. Okay, last call for questions. Then John and Steph can run it up.
The question from Honorina. Based on travel focus, does this mean that travelers may be more inclined to look at smaller properties rather than larger ones? And is Expedia doing anything to work with these smaller to medium operators?
So from the information that Jonathan shared, people are definitely looking to avoid crowds. So the South Pacific destination is the perfect way to do that. But as you've mentioned, those smaller boutique properties may end up picking up some of that share. The only thing that I have to say about that is that we've found that a lot of those smaller or, as you said, medium operators haven't yet updated a lot of the information that the larger properties have. So a lot of the larger properties, because they do come from chains, have someone who has updated their health and safety information. They've updated all of the photos, made sure that the room types are set up correctly. So from a customer's perspective on the website, they do look a little bit different. We are absolutely working with everyone to make sure that you are set up for success. If you haven't heard from your market manager, it might just be that they're still processing all of the properties. We've been doing quite a lot of work over the last few months, but send an email through with, just what can I do to maximize exposure, bookings, content, whatever it is that you're looking for. And we can definitely share some recommendations. It's generally not something that's going to take a lot of time. Most of the time, the content will take you maybe half an hour at most to make sure that your listing is immaculate. But the biggest thing I can recommend is look on the customer site. Does your property really sell the way that you want it to sell? Are those first few photos the ones that you want customers to be seeing? Do each of your room types differentiate from each other? As a customer, would you be enticed to spend more to book a higher room because you see the value in it? Or are all of the photos the same? So a few really easy things to look at, but send us the email and we can make sure that you're set up for success as well.
Yeah, and to back you up, Steph, again, I just want to insist on what you just shared, the last bit of information. Go online, type in your destination and see where your tour or property or airline, should you have an airline, pop in the results. And that's definitely, you want to put yourself in the shoes of the customers and see what they would see. And the best is, just whether it's on Expedia.com, on Google, just type in your property on your product and see what sort of results is coming up.
Hi, John. Can you just reiterate on the Australian New Zealand travel, the priorities, concerns, and intentions about cleanliness and stuff like that that you showed in your presentation? Can you just talk about it? Just remind us of those what the Aussie and New Zealand and the Kiwi travelers would like to see in a destination.
Yes, look, so there's two items. There's the pretty much cleanliness of the property and guest safety in terms of protective equipment and that sort of things. So should you have a listing on Expedia, there's a specific dedicated section in the content section where you can update all the measures and protocols that you are setting up for your property. Again, if you can't find that section on Partner Central Expedia Extranet, please reach out to us and we'll be able to take you to the right page. It's a very quick system of question and yes/no answers that are then displayed on the left side to display the travelers, all the measures you're setting up. If it's another channel on another support, you're welcome as well to, as I say, should you have a little tag on the leaflet that says that you are professionally clean. And the type of information asked in those in that section is, are you washing the towels and bed linen to at least 60 degrees? Yes. And then we display that information to the guest. Is your staff wearing mask? Is there a protective shield at the reception? These are all quick questions to answer. There's no wrong or right. What we want is just to display to the travelers what is being set up at the property.
I would add with this, a lot of the questions are things that properties have already been doing. So is the property cleaned with disinfectant? I don't know a single property that hasn't been using disinfectant to clean everything in the last 20 years. But it's just that customers have indicated that this is very important to them. So we've added that question. And similarly, some of the questions about having a protective shield between guests and staff, most properties in the South Pacific have not implemented that because you've kept COVID under control. But this is a global list of questions. So it's important for travellers who are coming from a destination where that has been the norm to understand what you are doing. And the other, I guess, key items that Jonathan was sharing. So we've got the health and safety information. Finding a good deal was also key, a little bit higher with New Zealand travellers than Australians. But as we've shared, finding a good deal doesn't necessarily mean rock bottom prices. It just means finding a deal that's relevant in the market. So if you have similar style properties, similar star ratings, that sort of thing, is your rate competitive with theirs? Or are you offering guests something that is out of the ordinary, something that they see that value in, is key. Flexibility in booking options, as we've said, a flexible cancellation policy is key because guests are in the same position as you. They're not sure what will happen, if the flights will be running, if they'll be able to get travel insurance, which is also another key item at the moment. So there's that giving them that extra peace of mind is something that's really working. And then the last two are quite specific to our market. So avoiding crowds and supporting communities that are reliant on tourism. They've actually put as top priorities in their searches. So a couple of very easy things that I think you can look at doing.
Does anyone else have any questions, or is that it for 2020?
Finished it on an interesting note.
Very interesting.
Let's prepare for next year as much as we can.
I know. All right. I think no one else has a question from the group, from our participants. Thank you very much, Steph and Jonathan, for the interesting presentation that you have for us this morning, and for responding to the questions that our participants have asked. Like you said, exciting times ahead for 2021, and we are all looking forward to that. Thank you, Kevin, Honorina, and Evelyn, for all those who have asked with the questions this morning. Simon, I'm not going to leave it to you too. I guess that's all that we have for you today. Well, that's all we have for you this year, but we'll be back in January, bright and early. Expect the invitation sent out then. And thank you, Jonathan and Steph, for joining us here this morning for SPTO's final webinar for 2020. Merry Christmas and a very prosperous New Year to you all. Thank you. More than Manda.
Thank you, everyone. Vinaka, and Merry Christmas, everyone.